Welcome to the Mike Phelan Coaching.com podcast. Here we are at Leisure Box in Burnley, kindly donated by Burnley FC in the community, and we're also sponsored by Classic Football Shirts. We're going to talk about the finer detail of certain positions in football, and I've got Mike Phelan and Paul McGuinness with me again, two serious experts with very successful and decorated careers. We're going on to defending. We've done one episode on defending, but we're going to focus specifically on fullbacks. You were a fullback in part, Mike, for a certain section of your career, and you also worked with one of the best, really, in Gary Neville at Manchester United. Talk to us about that particular position. What does it entail?
Well, the fullback position has definitely been evolving over a period of time. You know, you were a fullback or a defensive fullback. You know, your first priority was to support your team from a defending position. Then he started to gain a bit of traction by you could indulge yourself a little bit, you get forward. But ultimately,
Did you get forward?
I did, yeah, and combine with the people around you, you know, whether you had a wide player on your side or a midfield player in that sort of triangular area that you operated in, and now it's gone into the sort of the fullbacks of what we've got in the modern game, which is more of the attacking-minded fullback, get forward, overlap, certainly contribute to the attacking side of things. So now we're classed as wing-backs in a way.
We have got a bit of double terminology there in the modern game. There's full-backs and wing-backs. What's the difference, Paul?
I really think...
or should they be able to do both?
No, it depends on their capabilities. So you have different types, you know. So people forget Gary Neville was a centre-back up until he was 18, 19. Took a bit of some persuading. Jim Ryan, the manager and everybody just thought he was going to be a little bit short at that level. In that time, you had to be really dominant in the air. As I said before, with goal kicks and so on, he was good in the air. He was a good centre-back. He was very good. And probably nowadays, he might have remained at centre-back. But in those days, said no. He had a transitional period sort of in the reserves. So he's going from being really successful there, and he wasn't really happy to do it. But he's such a good learner that he picked it up quickly. And he was already good on his defending aspects. But he was a centre-back who became a full-back. So he's going to have a different profile than others like an Evra or an Ashley Cole maybe, they were wingers first and then became full-back. So there's different types. And it's funnily enough now everybody's saying, well, now they're all attacking players and so on. But in the last season at Manchester City, he's picked 4 6'2", 6'1", 6'2", and machines, physical machines at the back. So he's basically picked 4 defenders who can go forward and play and so on. But he's got Walker, who's a fly machine. He's mainly a defender. He's not injuries attacking. He really goes in and supports behind and stops attacks. You've got the lad who's coming at left back has played left centre back as well. Akanji, and Aki have all played centre back. So maybe that'll be a trend the other teams look at, you know, that Pulis was doing for years. He had 4 centre-backs. But he's obviously looked at it and thought, we need height for restarts, we need pace, and we need good defenders because that's our main way of losing games, you know, against the counter-attack. So it all depends on what do you need. Other people have pushed a right back into midfield. It all depends on their qualities, I think, and how you want to play. But in all of it, they now have to be good at building off from the back, and they have to be good at joining in, and they have to be really first-class defenders, 1v1, because more than ever, people are playing 1 against 1 at the back, you know, whereas rather than having a +1, that's going out of the game so much because people have to push people forward to defend all the way into the opposition half.
To bring another one in, Mike, you worked with Andrew Robertson at Hull City, who's gone on to be very successful for Liverpool. What does he bring to the table?
Well, he brings attitude, pace, and awareness of space. You know, again, you know, I could put Andy Robertson into the Patrice Evra sort of situation. Predominantly loves to get forward. He can deliver an end product. He can score a odd goal here and there. But he's in a team that is pretty progressive at getting forward. But then the balance of that with an Andy Roberts, he needs somebody alongside him or inside there that can cover space. Because space is going to be there. And it's getting that balance right between, are you an attacking fullback when you need to be? Are you defending fullback when you need to be? Are you good on your outside defending? Are you good on your inside defending? These are completely different coaching topics that you can put together. Do you show him down the line? Do you show him inside? How often now do we see, fullbacks coming up against opposite wide players? On the right, it's a good left footer. On the left, it's a good right footer. So they're coming in the game. Are they comfortable within that defensive system to allow that to happen? So there's a lot of aspects now to being a fullback, which is completely different to before. But there are things in there that ultimately you want them to do strong. If you can find both in one player, and you've cracked it. But like Paul goes back to, trying to find a left back. That was a difficult thing to do. Trying to get the balance of a left back, because it does give you balance. Does a right back give you balance? Yeah, of course it does. But ultimately, how does that fullback interact with people alongside them and in front of them? What is that role? What does that look like? And a lot of coaches have worked on these things in order to get the best out of everything.
In terms of, you talked about what do they bring, their strengths and abilities. These players, the defenders, they go in forwards as well. Is there sort of do you try and educate them all and then find out what they're good of? And I don't like the word pigeonhole, but try and put them into...
Well, everybody's got strengths and weaknesses, haven't they? So, what you do is maximise the strengths and you sort of hide in the weaknesses a little bit. As it came to Man United, Gary Neville was more of a defensive fullback because he'd been a centre-back, and Evra was more going forward. So quite a lot of time people say, oh yeah, you'd make an extra man in midfield and maybe just play three at the back that people are doing now. Really, that was going on because that was Man United, and Evra was bombing forward on the inside or on the outside, and that would happen. And I would say a lot of teams would want that balance. But it's the art of defending and positional play is a really big thing. So a year or so ago, I was really highlighting this on Twitter. I was highlighting something that I knew about, but it really got drummed home to me. I went to a coaching demonstration by Ray Lewington, and he made such a simple but clear point, and the point was if the ball is transferring across to this side here, then the fullback shouldn't come outside the line of the ball before the ball is played, because if he comes, say the striker's there, if he's there, he's cutting that pass off there. If it goes out there, he can get to him. So if he anticipates, and a lot of them do, they start to anticipate, and he starts to go out there, now that pass is on for here, or that pass is on for this run through here. So that principle of being compact, it's a great one. Don't go outside the line of the pass too soon. Now, obviously, if the ball's all the way over, if it's over here, he's not going to be doing that. That'll be his job. But if it's down his side, and the ball is here, he shouldn't, even if he's here, wait, and then you can always make the ground and get out there. And it's a really good rule for coaches and for players, because if you don't, you're getting caught here.
Yeah.
And a lot of them sometimes, like you'd say, the lad from Liverpool, Thiago, I think he's retiring now, make it look as though he's going to pass there, and he reads his body language, and then he reverses it in there. So that would be a key sort of, just a little principle that you could practice, that you could teach. Definitely, absolutely teach that, of staying in the line of the ball before it goes out there.
Mike, you played in the position yourself. Great example from Paul there. Are there many things that you're concentrating on as you're watching the game going on in front of you? Or are there key things in particular?
Well, the key things that you look at from certainly playing on the outside of the game sometimes is what's your connection inside.
This is your central defence.
Yeah, Paul talked on gaps. If you're too wide, you expose yourself and you expose your partner as well. Not only your partner that's inside you in this case, but probably the partner that's coming back. So a lot of the time is closing up the gaps, particularly when you're up here. Everybody wants to defend a little bit like, particularly here. If you're too far out, you're exposing this space here sometimes. So it's better to keep the ball in front of you. Yeah, the problem you have sometimes is what is the capabilities of this player when he receives the ball and goes 1v1 with you. But that's a decision you make for the good of your team and sometimes for yourself, because you might be really strong at this, being compact, but you might be really strong at doing that, going tight against him. Once you've made that decision, it's a reaction then of everybody else. Is he happy? How often do we see sometimes centre-backs complain that you're exposing us? I think Virgil does it quite a bit at Liverpool. He's looking sometimes at Robertson because he's keen and he's quick and he can get there. But once he makes that decisive move, he's now exposed himself, which he doesn't possibly sometimes want to be exposed, and he has to compensate. Not only then does he compensate, he has to.
I was going to say, that brings this full-back in.
So that's the connection. It's not just the individual thing, it's the connection as to that's his strength, but it might also be his weakness. I'm not saying that's Virgil's weakness, but I'm saying that could be a weakness. So you have to, as a full-back, connect with your fellow teammates. Don't leave too many gaps. Be compact to start with, and then obviously if you're a progressive fullback and you want to get forward, that's when the other elements come into it, because from here, and we talk a little bit about defending and intercepting, if that ball is played and he's anticipated and he can get there, it may be that by the time that ball's travelled, he's intercepted and he's away now. And that could be a strength. And you talked about Robertson. That is definitely a strength of his. If he can intercept and he goes, he's taken a defensive position up, but he's created an attacking position and literally got rid of 3 or 4 players from the opposition because they can't get back into the game.
So a lot of that, Dave, we're talking about is positional play, which is very important. So in my sort of little checklist that I'll promote for coaches is, position, but then body orientation is really important. So, as we've got it here, say it's the wide man here. If you can't see it so much because he's here, but if he's just looking this way, this wide man could get in across here and across there. So he has to get his body opened up. He has to open his body up, also the thing for that is if they go more in the box, and now they're down here and it's going to be a cross, goalkeeper's in and he's coming in. That means if he's sort of square on, so where are we, Nick? If we use this, if I'm defending this goal, and my man's at the far post, if I'm in this position and I now want to run and jump, it's very hard being back to goal. But if I'm side on, I can see where he is. So if Mick can stand up, so if Mick's sort of behind me over there, so if you're the guy attacking me, Mick, around this side, if I'm here, and Mick's got the run on me now, so he can run forward and I'm going backwards, I can't get there. Whereas if I'm side on, say you were further back, Mick, I can now run and take off and jump sideways. Now what Gary Neville used to do is very good at. He would even get closer than that. If you're in the box, you can't, you've got to look at the ball. And there, if I'm here and I look at the ball, I don't know where Mick is. Put my hand on him. Now look. Now if Mick moves off me, oh no, he's gone. I've got to get with him again. And I'm going to block. Now, Gary Neville became really good at this at the far post, of putting his body there. So now he's just making sure Mick can't get a good jump. And he just disrupts him and puts him off. So all those little bits of body language, footwork, so position, body orientation, footwork, body work, really important, yeah.
Talking about Gary there, and we discussed this off camera earlier, a lot of your under the microscope, the detail work is on connections with people and relationships with players on the field. He had probably 2 people in front of him, Beckham at one point and Ronaldo. How important is that in terms of those 2 working together, both defending and attacking?
Yeah, it's complementing each other. In all those, you know what each is good at. So Gary, as I said, was a centre-back, so his passing at centre-back would be very simple, probably give it your full-back if you're there, maybe play a long ball, not too much. So when he went to full-back, he had to sort of develop it himself, but also this bit of body orientation, instead of being just straight on, he's now receiving balls from over here. So he's now, if you're the winger, if you're Beckham, he's got to get the ball from here to here. So he's already got to look, and now you've got to control the ball past your body, and now you've got to give the right service to whichever forward to so on. So he became, I would say, one of the best side foot passers. And you might think, well, a side foot passer? Yeah, over 10, 15 yards, perfect weight, just dropped it the right place. Feed this guy. Because this guy can do anything with the ball. He can whip it in, he can play crosses, But as he went on, Gary was such a bright learner, he starts to watch Beckham, and Beckham's doing this and playing reverse passes. So Gary in the end started doing it to his midfield player, and he even got to the point, Gary, where he could play this pass. So the centre forwards there, they used to have, say, Sheringham or York or whoever. Gary would be, so the wingers there, he's like that. There's another centre back. Gary would get on the ball here, and he could, if that was blocked off, in the end, he could bend that ball like that and drop it in there because he developed a range. But at the start, all he was doing was he's just feeding him. And if it came back to him, he'd feed him, he might play that one. But he'd feed him, and he'd just give it to him in the right place and the right time. Now, as he went more, what he became really good at was also, I'll feed it to Bex, and I'll go past him. But all he did then was get that ball and then just roll him the perfect pass to play it in first time, because he realised the other player's strengths. But the two of them working together was the combination. So those crosses he hits in first time relies on the right weight, just the right place to hit that pass. And that's a lot more difficult than it sounds. You've got to be really clued in and playing just the right weight to just the right foot, the right place is a massive skill.
Yeah, that's because it all starts from here, but it finishes here. Do you know what I mean? So it's all starting here. So without that tempo and without that accuracy of pass, you don't get the movement from here into the box.
Yeah,
and that's the important thing. Is all the time.
Is this happening on the training ground, mate?
Yeah, you would put very basic things. It doesn't have to be a full scale 11v11 to do it. You can set up certain scenarios where you get the whole. You get this action here, the first initial pass, the pass back, and then you get the cross, or you get the ball played in. So there's 3 or 4 little things in there which all really start from the fullback position. And if that's not right there, it doesn't work here.
Mm.
But also getting it right here and getting it right here and getting it right here. Those are the 3 things. If you can combine all them together, you've got the perfect flow of the game. You've got the perfect...
Now, understanding those connections is really important. But in a sense, you have to give enough free play for them to understand it. So I did an interview with Darren Fletcher, and he talked about this. He talked about playing with different centre forwards. So he said, like we used to do a lot of this at United, because we had a lot of play in the final third. We'd maybe play 7v7 or 8v7 or what have you in here. So we'd clear them off and they'd play. And he said, yeah, we'd maybe do a few patterns. So the fullback's involved, Gary Neville's involved, and they do a pattern. It's up back through whatever. But he said mostly after a bit, they let it go free. And that then meant he could realise, now if this was Rooney liked it into his feet hard, because he liked to bounce the guy and roll him. If it was, Teddy Sheringham, he might be dropping off. But he always knew that Chicharito, he's always looking for that ball behind. He's making that little run. So you get to know in those practices what each player likes, and you get their body language signals and so on. And he said in his career, this was the other clubs or internationals, wherever he went, they didn't do it like that. What they did in this type of work was all staged in a sense. So it was out to him, he supports here, he threads it through there, and they all make runs. And it was a set pattern all the time, not, what does he like and what does he like? So, that's, you might have a bit of that. I think that it's important that you start to see the triggers and the cues that certain players make for you, yeah.
Yeah, without the certain bits of freedom that you give them, you've got to remember there's opposition in there trying to stop you doing that, and they will have analysed that and they'll have prepared themselves for those particular patterns. Patterns are great, but they've got to be executed. But they've got to be executed in the moment. So it's what the player sees, what the player sees on the ball, what the player sees off the ball. So there has to be an element of freedom in your practice to let them experiment, and feel it and see it, that, this is blocked, this is very difficult, what do I do next? And most of the time, the players will make those decisions based on practice, their own intuition, their own vision, and what they have seen over a period of time, that they will make the difference. The skill set will get enhanced, and they'll make the difference because they won't stick necessarily to the pattern. You know?
Well, yeah, and I think knowing your players, we talked about this one before, Mick, is if it's more up here in this sort of position, here, coming in this way, the ball's here, fullback's here, and it's one that Saka does for Arsenal with White. How do they create a space for themselves? Now, he might be coming over, getting challenged. However it is, it's something like that. And a lot of people I've had on coaching courses says you don't want your winger and your fullback on the same line. A lot of people say that. And I say, well, why? Because it might then, if they're both in the same line, they're creating a space somewhere else. So in this sense, as the ball's here, what happens a lot, White will come in here and he lifts his leg back as if he's going to play it here. And that makes the fullback come in sharp here, straight down. So it's like his lines of force, his flow is going that way. But then as he does it, as he's coming, he just plays it in there. And he runs sideways. So this guy's he's now going across. As he runs in, he's now going across that space. He's shielding it with his body, and he takes it in here. And now he's playing little passes here. It's a beautiful little deceptive move. Stops him getting trapped. If he goes here, he gets trapped on the line. But and you know the defenders are going to come to him, and it's just a little soft pass, and he just takes it inside it. Beautiful bit of play, you know. And I call it gaining advantage in flow. The defender's coming that way, you go across him the other way. And if you remember, we were talking earlier about Dennis Irwin, a right-footed left back. Similar sort of thing. Dennis would be over here, Giggs would be here, Player would be here. You'd have this forward maybe come in, something like that. Midfield player, he's going to close him down. Centre back's playing, something like this. We could take them off, and then so as the ball, as he's about to come across, he wants to trap Dennis on the line. So a lot of people, when they're right-footed, they receive it back here, they come here, and they're trapped. So they play it back. But what Dennis used to do, as that ball was on its way, he used to come inside and meet it. And as he meet it, this guy's going already that angle, he takes it inside him. You know, so now that's opened up that place. Now, he might, if he's on his way, he starts to read that and stop it. But what's he got now? He's got this reverse pass to Giggs here, if he wants to. He can play it there. Or if this guy's really here, Dennis was really good at turning out as well. So now he can just turn back out. He's got this space to play with. So a fullback doesn't really want to get stuck with his heels on the touchline. Because if he comes inside, even if he's left-footed, he's got that space to play the pass or come out and play there. So that was, again, look, if run through it again. We might, let's do that. See if we can do this. This works. So if he's got this sort of space, I like to use this. So he's at the moment, it looks like he's going to get in there. That's how he would be stopped. But as he's coming, he brings it to here. Now he's got maybe that opened up. If he stops that, he's got that opened up. And what Dennis used to have, Giggs used to come here and then spin there. And he used to play that one over there as well, didn't he? Which was a great ball. But that I like the circle to just sort of say, well, how do you gain advantage in flow? And if he does get stuck, well, he's still got that space to turn back out with.
Yeah, and he's always got this ball.
Yeah, and he's always got this one. But this yeah.
And the keeper.
Sometimes when they get stuck like that, that's the only ball they've got on. You know, if they don't move it inside with a right footer, yeah. A lot of the time.
But that from a sort of a proactive point of view, the fullback and even an attacking fullback, that would probably be his last option.
Yeah.
His mind.
Yeah.
His first option would be, how do I progress from here to here, not back here? And I think sometimes when we observe games now, it's very easy and simple just to keep rotating the ball back. So we get great possession of the ball, but actually not really forcing.
But he's almost in a position where if he runs across and the guy comes to run across with him, he's got this ball and even a 1-2, to go around that back. He's creating more options for himself by disrupting the flow of the defender. Yeah. He's not getting trapped by that flow.
Well, you've got loads of options here, which are a lot of coaching points here, because that movement from there into here, whatever it may be, into here, and that's the defender. Certainly that movement in here, he closes that, he comes in. He can make an option, which is your Gundogan or whatever. You can also have a Giggs that now, once he starts to track inside, he may stay high, and you get this sort of movement. Same type of movement from here, but you're doing it here. So now it may be that pass goes from there, not backwards, but it goes forwards into there, and he's got a problem. And now you've just created an overload in there. Now you're going 3v3 at the back straight away through that movement.
Small solution to breaking the defender's flow and going across him. Yeah.
Great detail again, and we will take it out onto the pitch. So, actions, not words. Hopefully you'll be able to pick up how we can do this, how you can deliver it as coaches and as players as well. If it's players that are watching, great education for you here to take things into your game. Thanks again, Paul. Thanks, Mike. Fantastic to chat to you. Let's go on to the field.